Okay, let's unpack this. You've provided us with some truly thought-provoking material today. It really pulls back the curtain on a series of observations and claims. I mean, touching on everything from our skies to our very biology.
It's quite a collection.
Yeah. So today's deep dive is an exploration into synthetic biology, environmental alterations, and this accelerating pace of, well, technology integrating into life itself.
Mm.
And it all seems to tie into this concept of transhumanism.
Exactly.
Our mission here really is to explore what the sources suggest is happening right now, not just, predictions for some distant future.
And what's crucial, I think, is that we're going to follow the dots connected in your sources. We'll explore how these seemingly separate observations might actually weave together,
Right.
revealing a much larger and maybe surprising narrative. We'll look at impressions from the sky, the ground, changes inside us biologically, and then connect them to this, well, provocative vision of humanity's future.
Okay, so let's start right up top. Literally, what's above us? Your sources really highlight how the sky looks different. The clouds.
Yeah.
Used to be fluffy, distinct shapes. Now the descriptions are streaks, feathers, and unnatural crisscross configurations. And get this, even NASA acknowledges man-made clouds. They call it jet syrup.
Right, jet syrup. And if we look at the science presented, these lingering trails are framed as much more than just, normal condensation.
Okay.
Contrails, condensation trails, they typically form high up where it's cold and humidity is low, and they usually fade pretty quickly.
Uh-huh.
Natural clouds form lower down in higher humidity, sort of opposite conditions.
Right.
But what your sources emphasize is that today we're seeing these vapor trails that don't fade. They stick around, they spread out, they turn into clouds, forming this low-altitude white haze.
Losing the blue sky.
Exactly. Creating what some call a whiteout effect. And apparently, from a plane window, you can sometimes see a distinct spray line, deep blue sky above it, and below, everything looks veiled. So the key insight presented is how these persistent formations are fundamentally changing the atmosphere, potentially impacting sunlight, weather, who knows what else.
Okay, building on that, this is where it gets really interesting, maybe a bit disturbing. What exactly is in this stuff? What's coming down from these altered skies?
Well, according to the sources, when people have collected samples from the air, soil, water, three kinds of materials keep showing up.
Okay, what are they?
First, metallic salts, specifically oxides, aluminum, titanium, barium. The claim is these make the air conductive.
Conductive, not neutral, like normal air.
That's the assertion. A big shift, biologically speaking, if true. Second, there are these filaments or fibers, and the sources stress they're unidentifiable. Meaning sophisticated lab databases apparently have no match for them. Do not exist in nature is the quote used.
Okay.
And third, engineered biological.
Engineered biologicals, right. So how does this tie into weather? You mentioned clouds earlier.
Okay, so basic cloud physics. Moisture needs something to condense onto, right? Tiny particles called condensation nuclei.
Got it.
Now, your sources cite Daniel Rosenfeld, an atmospheric scientist. His research, as presented, suggests that pollution particulates can actually prevent rain.
Prevent rain. How?
By forming lots and lots of tiny, stable droplets that just hang there. Instead of merging and falling, they create haze.
So it's not just haze, it's potentially messing with rainfall itself.
That's the implication. Whether it's deliberate or accidental, it points towards altering fundamental weather patterns, and this connects directly to geoengineering discussions.
Right, like stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, SAG, spraying stuff up there.
Exactly. Often talked about as a future fix for climate change, spraying things like soot or sulfates. But your sources are strongly suggesting, well, maybe the effects are already here. We're seeing them now.
And yeah, speaking of seeing things, the sources include photos of these really weird cloud forms. Bearded clouds, hooked clouds, cirrus, sinus, and something called asperatus, like a blanket effect. Definitely not your standard textbook clouds.
No, not at all. Which brings us down to the ground. What's happening beneath these guys?
Okay.
Your material introduces Francis Mangels. He's a retired federal wildlife biologist, botanist.
Yeah.
From Mount Shasta.
And what did he observe?
A huge difference between now and the 50s and 60s. Back then, he says, jets didn't leave many trails. Today, these trails, whatever they are way more frequent, and they last 10, 20 hours sometimes.
Hours. Wow.
Yeah. He apparently counted over 30 at once, sometimes even 100 before weather fronts. And the sources note the FAA indicates those numbers are way too high for the number of actual scheduled flights.
That is odd. And what about testing on the ground? You mentioned samples earlier.
Yes, the lab results reported from Northern California are pretty startling. Alarming levels of aluminum and barium in soil and water.
Like, how alarming.
Okay, get this. Pond water in Mount Shasta, 12,000 micrograms per liter of aluminum. That's apparently 24,000 times normal levels.
24,000.
That's what's reported. Snowdrift up high, 61,100. And a lined pond, meaning sealed from groundwater in Bella Vista, a staggering 375,000 micrograms per liter.
Whoa!
And the crucial takeaway presented is that soil tests show aluminum levels are higher outside houses than underneath them.
Meaning it's settling from above, not coming up from the ground.
That's the interpretation offered, yes. It suggests an atmospheric source.
And this must be affecting nature, right? Trees, plants?
Profoundly, according to the sources.
Yeah.
They discuss this widespread dying of the trees. Now, Charles Little's book talks about natural causes, sure, but your material highlights something new, unnatural.
Like what?
Trees growing twisted, like corkscrews or wine openers. The core problem presented is that nature just isn't equipped to handle these metallic oxides being absorbed with water.
You can see it.
Yeah, the physical signs described are brittle pines, needles turning a frosted brown, limbs sagging, and yes, lots of bugs, mites, fungus. But the sources argue those are secondary.
Opportunistic infections, basically. The trees are already weakened.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Weakened by these environmental changes.
There's also mention of a tube sock effect on trees. Weight bark.
Yes, exactly. And bark tests from those trees reportedly showed really high aluminum, 387 milligrams per kilogram, plus barium, strontium, titanium.
Huh.
They also mention a scorched look and this strange secondary growth little tufts spreading right out of the trunk, described as the tree's desperate last attempt to survive.
Man. Okay, so if this is the problem, what's the proposed solution?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. An induced problem often seems to come with its twin solution.
Meaning?
As nature struggles, the narrative becomes science will save it, and that leads directly to GMO trees.
Genetically modified trees?
Yes. Specifically the concept of the silent forest. Think about that name.
Silent forest?
Engineered trees that are non-reproductive. No fruit, no nuts, no blossoms. Therefore, no insects, no birds. Silent.
Wow. Why?
They're also designed with low lignin, which makes them easier to cut down for pulp or timber. The implication, as your sources frame it, isn't just about logging. It's about creating a completely controlled, domesticated, sterile version of nature.
And is this actually happening?
Well, the USDA apparently approved large-scale field trials. 200,000 GMO eucalyptus trees. So it's moving beyond theory.
Okay, connecting these dots. What picture emerges? You mentioned an MIT article.
Yes, from 2008 MIT Technology Review
Oh.
about aluminum-resistant crops.
Ah, okay. So crops that can survive the aluminum.
Exactly. Scientists found a single gene mutation that basically stops plants from shutting down cell division when they detect toxins.
So they just keep growing, even if conditions are bad.
Pretty much. One biochemist is quoted saying the plant becomes effectively blind to what's happening in the cell. It grows despite toxic aluminum, despite DNA damage.
So instead of cleaning up the environment, we engineer life to tolerate the pollution.
That's the critical insight presented. It risks normalizing a toxic environment.
Okay, let's summarize this part. Worldwide tree decline. Hazy skies, reducing sunlight, which usually helps control fungus.
Right, less natural disinfectant action. Mold and fungus thrive as plants struggle with toxins. And the bigger point, the air itself, potentially no longer neutral, but conductive because of these metallic salts.
Which has to affect everything living.
That's the fundamental assertion. A charged environment versus the neutral one life evolved in.
All right, this next point. This is where it really hits home. Moving to the human body. Remember those unidentifiable fibers from the air samples?
The ones not found in natural databases.
Your sources say they're now showing up in people.
Yes.
Associated with Morgellons syndrome. Skin lesions oozing, producing these weird fibers.
That's the condition, yes.
But here's the kicker, the really unsettling part in the material. Tissue samples cultured from ordinary people, people without Morgellons. They also contain and grow the exact same fibers.
That is the crucial point raised, yes. It suggests it's not limited to those with the specific syndrome.
So what are these fibers? Where did they come from?
Well, Clifford Connicom's research is cited. Back in 2000, he reportedly found these fibers in high-altitude airborne samples in New Mexico.
The same fibers.
Their structure, according to his reports, exactly matched the tubular filaments later found in human tissue samples.
Wow. And he found something else weird in the air samples too, right?
Yes, something described as desiccated erythrocytes, dried red blood cells.
Human red blood cells in the air.
That's what a medical microscopist he consulted reportedly confirmed. But Carnicom's research suggested they were engineered in some way so as to be preserved.
Engineered red blood cells floating in the air, ending up in people. What does that even imply?
It raises profound questions about environmental exposure and, well, biological integration, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's dig into that. The sources talk about transbiology.
Yeah.
What is that?
Essentially, creating new biological forms that cross natural boundaries. Like these tubular filaments, they apparently contain self-replicating internal bits that look like bacteria, but also behave like archaea.
So mixing kingdoms, bacteria, archaea, eukarya, all in one structure.
That's the description. Replicating inside our bodies. The sources state flatly, this does not happen in the natural world, suggesting novel hybrid forms, materials not native to us.
Blurring the lines between natural and artificial inside us.
That's the core idea, and it operates on the nanoscale.
Tiny, tiny stuff.
Very tiny. Carnicom's research reportedly observed these filaments making their own red blood cells and other submicron
They're
structures.
finding their own cells.
That's the observation presented. And these engineered cells are described as incredibly tough, surviving Bunsen burner flames, bleach, acid,
Whoa.
and they could apparently replicate outside the body in a petri dish. The sources call it highly sophisticated technology going on by itself, an autonomous artificial biological system.
Okay, that leads to this concept of the nanotech pyramid. Explain that.
Imagine tiny building blocks, nanoparticles. They self-assemble into more complex structures. Then those structures form functional devices, and those devices could potentially run entire processes within a living system.
So the question posed is, could artificial materials be put into us, assemble themselves, and create new processes that override our natural biology?
That's exactly the question raised. And it connects to reports from people with advanced Morgellons seeing strange crystalline forms, metallic devices coming out of their bodies, colored plaques, grooved metallic devices.
This sounds like science fiction.
Yet it's presented as observed reality in your source material. Jan Smith's research from morgellonsexposed.com adds more detail.
What did she find?
Fibers made of high-density polyethylene, basically plastic. Also throwbacks, which are described as identifiable bits of original genetics, maybe from whatever organism was used as a base, plus specific fungi like Umicota and even slime mold, Dictyostelium discoideum, things you wouldn't expect deep in human tissue.
And the fibers themselves, what were they made of besides plastic?
Cellulose, apparently.
Yeah.
But also, significantly, GNA.
GNA, not DNA.
Right. Glycol nucleic acid, a synthetic cousin of DNA. It has a different structure, can form mirror images, and crucially, it can entrap conductive polymers, even gold nanoparticles.
So you could build tiny circuits with it, inside biological structures.
That's the implication. She even reported some fibers releasing a gold payload when heated, and finding nanoarrays, tiny devices used for DNA analysis and interaction in her own body.
Nanoarrays in her body. Okay, so the broader implication here, Morgellons as the canary in the coal mine.
Exactly. If these materials are also in asymptomatic people, maybe some bodies react badly, that's Morgellons, while others integrate them silently. We don't know.
And you mentioned quantum dots, nanocrystals.
Yes, made of heavy metals, they're semiconductors, and they exhibit the piezoelectric effect.
Meaning?
Generate voltage from pressure. Or frequency. This is critical. It suggests a way external frequencies could activate these materials inside us.
Like radio waves, phone signals?
Potentially. It connects back to Carnicom, observing that a specific blue light frequency, 375 nanometers, reportedly caused explosive growth in his filament cultures.
Okay, so we live in this soup of frequencies now, right? Way beyond Earth's natural magnetic field.
Absolutely. Earth's field peaks around 3 to 30 hertz. Modern electronics phones, Wi-Fi, HARP, Gwen towers are way up in the megahertz, gigahertz range, a completely different energetic environment.
And how might that interact with synthetic materials in us?
Professor Ross Adey's paper on electromagnetic fields in neurology is cited. The subtitle is telling. A possible paradigm shift in biology.
Okay.
His key idea, as presented, chemical bonds are magnetic bonds. So high frequencies could potentially be activating these synthetic materials, messing with our biochemistry, supplying the energy to make them come alive.
The sources include some really weird anecdotes, too. Glowing hair, shimmering skin on a healthy person.
Yes, those are mentioned. Also a glowing arrow-shaped thing in rainwater. and a hexagon that apparently grew a fiber in seconds while being watched under a microscope.
It sounds unreal.
The conclusion drawn in the sources from these collective observations is pretty stark. Nothing about us today is normal, suggesting some pervasive underlying alteration.
Which brings us to synthetic biology. The goal is to improve and transcend the limits of nature using nanotech.
That's the definition provided. And the ultimate question posed is, where does this path lead? Your sources point to Time magazine's feature on the singularity.
The merging of man and machine.
Yes, predicting Homo sapiens will be no longer recognizable as itself by 2045.
That's not that far away. And this prediction comes from Ray Kurzweil.
Yes, the futurist. Your sources note his reputation for uncanny accuracy.
And his point is that tech progress isn't steady, it's exponential. It feeds itself.
Exactly, it accelerates. He's quoted saying, "We'll ditch Darwin and take charge of our own evolution."
Which immediately makes you ask, like the sources do, who is we and whose will are we talking about? Who's in charge of this evolution?
Profound questions. Kurzweil's specific predictions, as cited, are pretty bold. Reverse engineer the human brain by 2020.
Did that happen? Well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe behind the scenes. What else?
Arrival of hyper-intelligent artificial intelligence by 2029. He calls it strong AI.
Meaning AI that's not just good at one thing, but generally intelligent, like a human?
Yes, operates as easily, as broadly as a human, could pass a blind test, an intelligence potentially superior to ours, and may be capable of merging with ours.
And he outlines these three great overlapping revolutions, right? G and R.
That's right. G is for genetics biotechnology, mastering our biology, reprogramming it away from disease, aging.
Okay.
N, nanotechnology, blood cell-sized robots inside us, keeping us healthy, maybe interfacing with our neurons in the brain.
Merging us with non-biological intelligence.
That's the idea. He gives that example of robotic red blood cells, sprinting for 15 minutes without breathing, sitting underwater for hours, transcending biological limits.
wild.
And our
Robotics, but really it's about AI, the biggest revolution. Superhuman intelligence solving problems we can't even grasp now.
So GNR leads to what kind of world? The vision described is a smart environment, a techno-matrix. Everything connected, humming with ubiquitous intelligence,
And humans.
transformed into Homo evolutus. Biological processes run by tech. Other living things become engineered, non-reproductive species. Everything patented, licensed, controlled.
Nanotech, essentially installing AI everywhere, living and non-living. A controlled world.
That's the picture painted.
And Kurzweil himself is okay with this.
Your sources quote his willingness to change dramatically from what I am. He anticipates things like flash memories, Google directly into the frontal lobes, an expansion of the mind, he calls it.
Through merging with tech.
Yes, but how far does that go?
Right.
Kurzweil apparently describes this transformation where the small proportion that's still human gets smaller and smaller until it's just utterly negligible.
So we basically cease to be human in any recognizable way.
That's the trajectory. And his view, as presented, is that resisting this is futile. It's resisting evolution. It's dying out. He says, it's not a matter whether it's good or bad. It's going to happen.
That's a pretty deterministic view. But the sources push back on the enhancement idea, don't they? The sales pitch of perfect health, superpowers.
They do. They question if it's really enhancement or maybe degradation, being devolved to someone else's specifications, tailored for the hive.
The post-human described sounds less like a superhero and more like, well, something else. No gender, non-reproductive, a better performer in the workplace, but with narrower skills.
Implying not broader abilities, but maybe a more predictable, controllable range of expression. Less human variability.
And there's that prediction from Oliver Curry, the evolutionist.
Yes, from 2007. Predicting the human race splits into two species. An attractive, intelligent, ruling elite, and an underclass of dim-witted, ugly, goblin-like creatures.
And the source material bluntly states.
It does. It states, you and I are going to be the goblins. It's a stark framing.
So these critical issues,
Yeah.
the way Morgellons victims are dismissed, called delusional,
The blackout on it, yes.
but also these huge intellectual property questions. If patented creations end up inside us without consent, what happens?
The analogy used is farmers sued when patented GMO seeds blow onto their fields. Are we then in unlawful possession of something that's become part of us?
A forced partnership, eternally owned, charged for having something in our own bodies we can't remove.
It's a deeply unsettling legal and ethical minefield. The sources use the invasion of the body snatchers analogy, our biology adapting to host an alien form of life.
And Jonas Salk's term, metabiology, basically mining genetics for profit and control.
Yes, the conclusion drawn across the material is quite direct. We are living, walking laboratories. We are being altered. The future being spoken of is happening now.
Not some distant sci-fi scenario.
Not according to these sources, no.
Uh,
And to wrap up, Kurzweil's ultimate vision, as presented in the material. Nanobots infusing all matter. Rocks, trees, everything becomes intelligent. The universe wakes up. Human-machine intelligence multiplies trillions of trillions fold.
Leading to that final chilling quote attributed to him.
Does God exist? Well, I would say not yet.
Wow. That is quite a journey through the material you shared with us. I mean, it really challenges our perceptions of what's natural, what's engineered, what the future holds.
It certainly does.
Our mission here, as always, is just to equip you with the knowledge from these sources, help you connect the dots for yourself, maybe to see what might be happening.
To encourage critical thinking about it all.
Exactly. So the final thought to leave you with, given everything we've unpacked today, if this transformation is indeed happening now, potentially without our explicit permission, what does that mean for your understanding of your own biology, your own health, and maybe your role, your agency in navigating these really profound shifts?